Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Deliver Me project. In this series, I talk about my open source application and what I'm doing with it. Today, I'm going to be discussing how I'm going to scale my app so that it can fit more users. Currently, I don't have any users, but I'm going to be discussing how I would scale it, or how I am scaling it actually, so that if I ever release this app, it's able to perfectly adapt to more users with little to no difficulty, and the only expense being the excess server space. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so the first thing I'm going to be exploring on how I'm going to scale Deliver Me is called the database scaling. So there's two ways to scale a database: vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. So think of vertical scaling as taking your current server and just upgrading it or making it bigger. Let's suppose you have a building or a hotel, and your hotel has 100 people in it. Now, all of a sudden, you've realized that your hotel is starting to gain more and more attraction. So what you're going to want to do is sell off this building and buy a new one. Now, that seems all fine and dandy. Now your hotel can hold 1,000 people. But now you realize that you need to hold 10,000 people. So now what you need to do now is sell your current building and buy a new one. Now, as you realize that moving in between takes time, it costs a lot more money. That's what vertical scaling is. Vertical scaling is the concept of taking pre-existing hardware and adding more to it. Now, while this is good in the short term, it often leads up to stacking up more and more bills of money. Now, the second option is called horizontal scaling, where instead of me buying one hotel and then selling and then buying an even bigger hotel, I simply buy the same hotel again. Similarly, for the server analogy, I simply buy another pool of server, and what happens is that the load is shared between X amounts of horizontal servers. For example, my first server can hold the first 500 users, my second one can hold the next 500, etc., etc. So to scale Deliver Me to a proper amount of users, what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement horizontal scaling. I'm also going to be using vertical scaling, but that's mainly to vertically scale each of these horizontal scaled servers themselves. Now, the next thing we're going to be exploring is called Cron Jobs. All right, so let me just explain to you guys what Cron Jobs are. So let's suppose if my server gets hit by lightning. Now, my server's on fire, and my server, all the data has now been burnt and washed away. Now, all the users that have been using my app likely can't get into my app, and even if they can get into my app, they likely will not be able to recover any sorts of personal data. This could result in sensitive information like credit card info be lost. It can also result in people just not wanting to use your app anymore. So what you need to do is schedule a cron job. A cron job takes your existing data and writes it to another database somewhere else. It cannot be on the same server because then the entire server itself is at risk, right? Because if the server is on fire, where the backup data is located, well, that just defeats the purpose. So cron jobs run every X amount of hours. So I would be running them every 2 hours, and it takes all the new data inserted and ports it right over to the backup database. So that's what a cron job is. By having a cron job, I can feel better at night that my app will be safe and will not blow up in my face. So that's it for today's video, and I will have another video next week based on Deliver Me and its progress. Thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day.